Hi, this is Don McAllister and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. Every so often, a new technology comes along that has the potential to have a profound impact on our day-to-day lives. And the topic of this week's show is just such a technology. This week is the first of a two-part series exploring the Lightning Network, which allows you to send and receive value digitally across the globe instantly and for little to no cost. Now, this isn't a proof of concept. This is a real technology that's already being deployed across the globe and is seeing exponential growth. It's already being used by thousands of people every day, but the chances are that you may not have even heard of it. At a technical level, the Lightning Network is a second-layer protocol built on top of the Bitcoin network. However, I won't be covering how it works at the protocol level itself in the same way I don't cover how SMTP or POP email protocols work when looking at an email client. Instead, I'll be looking at some real-world examples on how it's been implemented at this early stage. The Lightning Network is a new global payment system that will revolutionize retail, commerce, and finance, removing barriers for cross-border payments. Now, once you realize just how powerful this is, the potential impact is quite profound. In order to establish a baseline of understanding, I do need to clarify some terminology. Now, although the word Bitcoin is pretty commonplace these days, it actually refers to two separate things, which can cause confusion. Firstly, Bitcoin is the name for the decentralized, permissionless network launched in 2009 that runs the open source Bitcoin protocol. Think of it as a huge decentralized ledger that keeps track and validates all of the Bitcoin transactions processed by the network. Now, since it was launched back in 2009, the Bitcoin network has grown to many thousands of nodes throughout the globe, allowing for the removal of any single point of failure. It's one of the most secure and powerful networks in existence, and since it was launched over 14 years ago, it's had a virtually unheard of uptime of 99.98%. Also, it's never ever been hacked in the 14 years since it was started. The Bitcoin network is not owned by any single entity, and no single entity has overall control over the network itself. Control can only be exerted by consensus of the majority of the node owners. Now, all transactions on the Bitcoin network are handled automatically, and there's no human intervention in processing or setting monetary policy. Everything is coded into the Bitcoin protocol and cannot be manipulated for gain. Now, these features set the Bitcoin network apart from every other cryptocurrency. In fact, it's often said that there is only one cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin, and all other cryptocurrencies are in fact unregulated securities as they are owned and managed by individuals or corporations and subject to control or manipulation by the owning entity. So that's Bitcoin, the network. Secondly, the word Bitcoin is also used to describe the digital asset that is managed by the Bitcoin network. So to prevent any confusion from this point on, I'll refer to the network as Bitcoin, but we'll call the asset by its abbreviation, which is BTC. So what is BTC? Well, BTC is in effect digital cash. Now, to use some financial jargon, BTC is what's called a bearer instrument. Now, this means that the holder of the BTC owns the instrument and can freely exchange it for goods and services. Now, some other examples of bearer instruments are things like the dollar bill or the pound note. So even though it's digital in form, BTC should be thought of as the same as physical cash. If it's in your possession, you can spend it freely without proving ownership. BTC is not a credit note or a promise to pay, it's actual digital cash. In the early days, BTC was typically denominated in whole units, as the monetary value of a single whole BTC was quite low. In fact, it was very low. Now, as the price of a single BTC has increased, it's really no longer sensible to keep denominating in whole units. The good news is that we don't have to, as a single BTC is divisible into much smaller units. One whole BTC equals 1 million bits, or more commonly, 100 million satoshis, or sats. Now, at the time of recording, which is March 2023, you'll see that the price of a single sat, or satoshi, is very small. In fact, it's less than a single cent. It's in fact 0.0002242 US dollars. If you round that up to 100 sats, that works out to just about 2 cents. In pounds, so 100 sats, if you round up, it's 2p. And the reason for showing you this is that when we come to look at the Lightning Network, we can actually transfer these tiny fractions of value around very, very quickly and for literally no cost, which is something you can't do with the existing Visa and MasterCard type systems. There's no way you can transfer these small amounts around quickly and for virtually no cost. But we'll have a look at that when I look at some of the examples. So that's the current price of a single sat, or 100 sats is about 2 cents or about 2p. So for the rest of this video, I'll be using fractions of a BTC, which is the lowest, smallest unit called the sat. So we've had Bitcoin and BTC for quite a while now. Why haven't we been using it as electronic cash? Well, the original Bitcoin network, although hugely secure, did have some issues which made it difficult to operate as an electronic cash system. Previously, transacting using the Bitcoin network could result in delays of up to 10 minutes before a transaction could be confirmed. And in addition, fees made some transactions prohibitively expensive, especially when dealing with smaller amounts. These two issues were major barriers to using BTC for commerce. The Lightning Network removes this barrier completely, allowing transactions to be settled virtually instantaneously and, as I said before, with little to no cost. And the Lightning Network now allows us, for the first time, to transact using micropayments down to fractions of a penny or cent. Another stumbling block addressed by the Lightning Network is transaction throughput. Now, by design, to maintain the highest levels of security, the Bitcoin network is only capable of 7 transactions per second. Now, obviously, this made the Bitcoin network unsuitable for processing high volumes of transactions, especially when you compare the throughput of something like the Visa network, which can process up to 24,000 transactions per second. The Lightning Network, as a second layer sitting on top of the Bitcoin network, can potentially scale to 1 million transactions per second or even higher. So, we've looked at the limitations of the Bitcoin network and how the Lightning Network addresses these and allows it to scale. We've also had a look at the denominations of BTC and how the sat is the smallest unit of BTC. But what is it you can actually do with sats? When I first covered BTC back in 2017, there wasn't really very much you could do with it, to be honest, and because of that, people struggled to see the value of BTC, and the perception was it was just a speculative asset. However, since then, things have changed dramatically, and new use cases for BTC are being developed and released, increasing its usefulness every day, especially in developing countries and the global south. Now, just as an example, there are many ways to receive sats. You can buy them using currencies such as dollars or pounds. You can receive them from other people. People can send you them quite easily using what's called a Lightning wallet. But you can also earn them as rewards, such as, it's credit cards. Over in the US, I think there's one called the Fold card that allows you to earn sats as a credit card reward. But you can also earn sats from consuming content. I'm going to show you an example of that. Once you have your sat, you can do many things with them. You can exchange them back to dollars or pounds. As I said before, sats are digital cash and have value, but over time, you probably just want to accumulate them to spend on goods and services. You can also send them to other people. You can exchange them with people. You can buy things with them. You can open web pages or download content. You can even stream sats in real time when listening to audio, for instance. The two examples I'm going to give you in this first part are very simplistic, but I've selected them just to introduce you to some of the core concepts. Now, you may not find these first examples earth-shattering, but I encourage you to think beyond these examples and project where this technology could easily be deployed in the future. I will be showing some more significant examples in the second part of this primer. But let's start by illustrating how you can start to earn sats by consuming content. Now, obviously, because this is a relatively new technology, a lot of the early adopters are Bitcoin related. So this first example is a fairly simple example, but I'm going to show you how you can earn sats by consuming content from the Bitcoin Magazine app. Now, one of the benefits of my new Mac Mini is that I can actually install iOS apps onto my Mac and run them from my Mac. So I'm going to do that rather than use my iPhone or my iPad. So across on the App Store is this Bitcoin Magazine app. I've already installed the application. I'm going to go ahead and say open it on my Mac. And we can now continue with email. So basically, I can create a new account on this magazine app. Now, I have my own personal account on here, but I'm going to set up a demo account. And to do that, we need to go ahead and send login link. So if I go across to mail, Wait for the email to come in. Here it is. I can log into the Bitcoin magazine, click on the link. We're now logged in. I can pop that down, and give it a few seconds. I'm going to enable notifications later, so we'll say do it later. Look at a few ways you can use the Bitcoin magazine app to earn Bitcoin. You can read articles, you can redeem flash codes, and you can spend or withdraw. Now, this is one of the beauties of using a standard, an open source standard, because it's using sats, which are digital cash. I can now either spend them within the application, or I can withdraw them from the application to store in my Lightning wallet or within another application and exchange them freely. I can even, if I want to, once I've accumulated a certain number, exchange them for fiat cash, so dollars, or for pounds. So they're not sort of like tokens, they're not application-specific tokens that you're locked into one particular service. You can exchange these freely in this vast ecosystem, which we'll show you more about later. But let's just go ahead. Now, currently, this is my balance, 0 sats, which is equivalent to $0, obviously. And there are some articles here, and I can see down here, 50 sats to read this, 50 sats to read the next one. Perhaps I should just clarify that is 50 sats for you to read the article, not for you to purchase the article. So I know we're not quite used to actually being paid to read content, but this is the proposition that Bitcoin Magazine, they will give you sats to read some of the articles. And if I scroll across, this one's 5 sats. They tend to have a daily 50 sats article, sort of like a featured article. But all the other articles, I think you normally get 5 sats for them, which isn't a huge amount. But again, I'm just showing you this as a technology example. I don't really expect you to go ahead and sign up to the Bitcoin Magazine. I just really want to give you a first taste of how this sort of works. Let me go ahead and read this article here, which is Introduction to the Best Multi-Sig or Multi-Signature Wallet. If I open up the article, and then I'll just scroll through and read the article, and then once I've done that, we'll come back. Okay, so we're at the end of the article, and you might have noticed as I rapidly scroll through there, I did read through it at normal speed, but I speeded up the video so you didn't have to wait to the end. There are quite a few adverts in here. This is probably the way they're able to pay you to consume the content, because they're hosting adverts within their articles. But okay, so that's the end of that particular article. If I hit the X to close it down, you'll see, whoop, whoop, you just earned 50 sats. So I now have 50 sat balance. Let me go ahead, and there's another one here. I'm just going to read through this one quickly, and that should bump our total up to 100 sats. Okay, again, I've now read that article. If I close the article down, there we go. We've now bumped up our balance to 100 sats, which is 2 cents. As I say, the intention of this isn't for you to get rich quick. It's not. I'm not intending you to sign up to the Bitcoin Magazine, although it is a great magazine and a source of some really good information. I just want to show you the technology behind it. Okay, so we've now got this 100 sat balance. There are options across the top to purchase merchandise or art or tickets using your sat balance. Obviously, I've only read 2 articles. I've only got 2 cents. It's not going to buy me very much. But if I go across to what's called the wallet, this application itself has a Lightning wallet built in. It's not strictly a full-blown Lightning wallet, but you'll see if I go into the wallet. So you need to accumulate 500 sats before you can withdraw. I'll look at that in a second. I can actually buy Bitcoin from here. There are various ways to buy Bitcoin and buy sats. I'm not going to go through that at the moment, but there's my current balance, 100, ready for withdrawal, and the total withdrawn, so both 0. If I go to withdraw, even though I can't technically at the moment, I've not got enough within my balance. These are the various options that you have. So I can withdraw the sats to a Lightning wallet. I can create a QR code. I can then scan that QR code with another device to transfer the sats out of this particular wallet, or I can use what's called a Lightning invoice. If I only want to withdraw a partial amount of sats from my wallet, I can create an invoice, and this gives me an option to download a Lightning wallet. And recommended to buy Bitcoin with River. I'll show you another way to buy Bitcoin or buy sats a little bit later on. If I just close that down, and then if I scroll down, you'll see there are some other articles here. Now, these standard articles are like 5 sats each. There's some interesting information here. Here's another option. A bank becomes the first bank to offer Bitcoin Lightning payments. This is quite interesting. In fact, I will read that offline because I want to have a look at that. This is one of the ways that we're going to end up using Lightning in our day-to-day activities, possibly without even realizing it, because standard banks will start to adopt these new payment rails over time. So that's the Bitcoin magazine. So it's just a very simple way of accumulating sats to use in other places or within the app itself. Another way to earn sats is to listen to podcasts. And yes, you heard me right. You can accumulate sats while listening to podcasts. In addition, you can support your favorite podcasts by streaming sats to them in real time, or even send them a boost of sats as a sign of appreciation. Because yes, we now have streamable money. Now, this is all down to an initiative called Value for Value by Adam Curry, one of the original creators of podcasting, who, along with developers, has integrated the Lightning Network and launched Podcasting 2.0. If you visit the podcastindex.org, you'll see that there are over 12,000 podcasts that support this new initiative and enable you to support podcasts directly. Again, because it's early days and these podcasts are all sort of early adopters of this new model, you'll find that quite a few of them are either to do with podcasting or to do with Bitcoin. But more and more standard podcasts are coming online. In fact, it's very easy for a podcaster to get included into the podcastindex.org and start being able to receive sats as people listen to their shows and to get donations in the form of boosts. Now, as well as the podcasts, there are the supporting services and applications. If we go across to the apps tab, so there are hosting companies, there are apps themselves, directories, etc. If I just go to the filter, because I just want to see sats streaming, so this should filter out and give me a list of all the podcast players. So quite a few here: Podverse, CurioCaster, Podfriend. The one I'm going to show you today is an app called Fountain. I'm actually going to show that across on the iPad, but there are other alternatives. And again, these are all based on an open system, so they are all interoperable. They all use sats as the core money to provide value for value services. I will need to demonstrate this on the iPad. I'm going to start scanning QR codes, etc. So it's going to be easier to do it on the iPad. So I'll go across to the iPad. We'll take a look at Fountain. So across over on the iPad, I've done a quick search for Fountain, downloaded and installed the application. So let me go ahead and open it for the first time. So the only podcast app that rewards both listeners and podcasters for the value they bring to the platform. Let's just read the initial blurb. Say get started. And simply by listening to your favorite shows, as well as daily promotions on the discovery page. On Fountain, you can earn small units of Bitcoin called sats. The sats you stack are stored in your wallet. You can also, this is quite a nice feature actually, you can create clips from your favorite shows and publish the clips. And then if other people listen to those clips, you can actually earn additional sats as well. But we'll say next to that, and then you can interact with hosts, guests, and listeners with boosts and replies. So this is also a communications medium. When you send a boost to a podcaster, you can actually send a comment as well. And then stream sats for every minute that you listen. Okay, so let's go ahead and say next. And let's go ahead and create a new account. I'm just going to put in my email address, which I've not used on this platform before, although I do have a personal account. We'll say login with email. Let's go across to my mail system. And there's my login link. We'll say login to Fountain. And we're in now. I can send notifications, but I'll say don't allow for now. Now, because this is a new account, it gives me the ability to import from other podcast players, so Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or using the OPML format. So you'll find that most podcast apps will export your podcast list in OPML format. So I can get them into here, but I'm just going to go ahead and say not right now. And that opens up the app at the Discover page. Now, these are the various clips. You can see this chap here, or lady, has boosted 500,000 sats to this particular podcast, the Linux Unplugged podcast, along with a note that you've sent to the podcast producer. This is a clip, so we can listen to this clip if we wanted to. Another clip here. So it's a really good way for discovering new podcasts, actually, because people find a minute or 30 seconds of content that they think is really good. They create a clip and they post it, and then it will appear eventually on this Discover page You can listen to the clip and then you can go directly to the episode if you want as well. So I find that to be a really neat feature. Let me go to search. So these are the featured podcasts, the hot shows, hot episodes, etc. I'm actually going to go ahead. I won't subscribe to a Bitcoin podcast. I'm going to subscribe to Podcasting 2.0, which is Adam Curry's podcast. So we'll go to here. Now, as you can see, I've rotated the iPad into portrait mode. Fountain works best in portrait mode. So this is the show page for the Podcasting 2.0 podcast. Nothing in the library as of yet. I can follow the show or subscribe by clicking on this button here. I can also see the available episodes here. Now, I'm not really going to cover the ins and outs of the Fountain podcast app. It's a very complex app, actually. You can do an awful lot with it. Perhaps I will come back to it at a later date to do a full show on the app itself. I really want to focus on the Lightning Network integration that's been built into the application. Okay, so let me go ahead and we'll go to this particular episode. So I can download for offline listening by clicking on this button here. You can set it to auto download as well. I've got access to a queue, so I can add this to my podcast queue. I can delete the episode. I can play it. I can tag it. I can look at the episodes and I can share it as well. If a show does have chapters, you can go into the chapter section here. So just the one chapter in this one for now. But let's go back. Oh, down at the bottom, there's this option to boost. But again, we'll come back to that shortly. Let me just start playing the show. So we get a nice big artwork in the middle. The ability to clip, to stream, and to boost. We'll come back to that again later. Now, I have lowered the volume, as I said before, so you can't hear the podcast, but it is playing in the background. If I go up to the top, you'll see that this symbol here shows me that we're currently earning sats as we listen. If I click on this little icon, you'll see at the bottom, you're earning 1 sat per minute. Get paid by Fountain for your first hour of daily podcast listening. Your earning rate each day is assigned at random. So you could actually earn more than the 1 sat per minute. So if you listen to the first hour, you're going to get 60 sats per day for listening to podcasts, which is all well and good. A nice little bonus. But I think the main thing or the main benefit of Fountain is that you can now support your favorite podcast. And the way you would do that is to click this option here. Now, before I click stream, in fact, let me show you what it looks like. You can actually stream 50 sats per minute back to the podcaster. So if you don't like a podcast having adverts, or if it's a podcast that has no monetization around it, and you want to contribute and reward the podcaster for producing the content, you can go ahead and send them sats per minute. Now, this amount is configurable. You can click into the box and you can either increase or decrease the number of sats per minute. Once you've set the new value, just click on the Update Sats per Minute button underneath. Now, there is a minimum number of sats per minute that you can send. If I just click on the I button, you'll see the minimum is 10 sats per minute to ensure that each split gets their share. Fountain charges a 4% fee on top of all streams, and you can join Fountain Premium, which is a subscription service, to reduce your transaction fees. But I'm just going to click away from there for now. Another really neat feature, because this is using the Lightning Network, is that those 50 sats per minute can get split between different contributors. If I go to splits, you'll see, well, this is quite a complex split. So podcastindex.org gets 81%. Sovereign Feeds, whoever that is, gets 10%. The chap who does the chapters, Dreb Scott, he gets 5%. Boostergram Monitor, I think these are all background infrastructure pieces that Adam knows about, so is contributing to them by putting them into the split. But you can see here, doesn't all go back to the podcaster. They can split it. They can split it with a guest, say. So if they have a guest on a particular show, they can split some of the value for value payment back to the guest. But let me put that down. If I want to switch this on, I just toggle this switch here. But the problem is that I haven't got 50 sats to send them at the moment because my wallet is going to be empty. So in the same way that the Bitcoin Magazine app had its Lightning wallet built in, there is also a Lightning wallet built in to the Fountain app. So to get to that, if I just go ahead, but we need to go back to our home page. So let's just go back. And then down at the bottom, you'll see we have the option to access our wallet. Now, as I said before, this is empty because I've not been listening to enough podcasts to I've earned some sats. So if I just go to today, well, as you can see, nothing's been earned. No rewards, no promotions, no referrals, boosts, etc. And I also haven't started supporting any podcasts yet because I haven't any sats to give them. Just do this see all. Yep, no transactions whatsoever. Okay, so what can I do about it? Well, what I can do about this is I can now fund my wallet. And I already have some sats in a separate external wallet. So what I'm going to do, I will show you how to purchase some sats, probably in part 2 of this Lightning Network primer. But I've got some sats on an external wallet. I'm going to transfer them into this wallet so I can start supporting my favorite podcasts. Now, to do that, what I need to do is go up to here next to wallet, these 3 dots. I can fund my wallet. I can withdraw from the wallet. I can share my current Lightning address, or I can connect a separate service, which we won't look into at the moment. I'm just going to go ahead and say fund wallet. Now, I can deposit with a bank card. It's quite expensive to do it that way, to be honest. So I'm just going to deposit with Lightning. Now I can select a number of sats I wish to deposit. So 5,000 sats, which is only the equivalent of about $1. 10,000 sats, which is $2.25, 20,000, 50,000. These sound like huge numbers, but we're really talking pennies here, so it's not a big deal. Let me go ahead and do 10,000 sats. Give it a second, and there we go. This is what's called a Lightning invoice in the form of both a QR code and also this long string at the bottom. This is the invoice address. Now, the invoice itself is generated by Fountain, and it contains all the information that an external wallet needs to make the transaction. So the amount, all the addressing, etc., is all contained within this invoice address. And this is a very typical way of transferring sats from one device to another, or from one person to another, or from one country to another. You can scan a QR code or copy in an invoice address. Now, I'm going to use an external wallet that is installed on my iPhone to pay this invoice. So let me just go across to the iPhone. I recently installed an app called BottlePay on the iPhone, which is where I've actually recently just purchased some sats. And I'll show you that in part 2. So I'm going to use the BottlePay wallet. It doesn't have all the features that you would get from a standard external wallet, but I can transfer sats out of this wallet. But that's for now. Just open the BottlePay wallet, and I'll show you how that's configured. It's currently secured by Face ID, so there we go. So we're now in. So it's a multi-currency wallet. So up at the top, you can see I've got my BTC account. I also have some British pounds in here as well. So I've got £4 of GBP. I've got 24,621 sats. Let me go ahead and go back up to here. And just as a reminder, a sat is 100 millionth of a BTC. And if I actually click on here, you can actually see that. So it's 0.00024621 of a BTC. But again, that's really difficult to get your head around. So I tend to just use the sat denomination. As I say, we'll come back to this wallet later, but we're going to go ahead now and just fund. I'm going to send 10,000 sats from this wallet across to my Fountain wallet. I'm going to go ahead and switch to live video while I actually do this transfer, so bear with me. Okay, so there is my QR code. I'll just bring in the BottlePay wallet and tap on the send button. And then all I need to do is just capture the QR code with the camera, and that transaction is now ready to go. Now, you'll see there it says 10,006 sats. To pay the invoice, I just swipe along at the bottom. And okay, that's completed. I get a notification on my phone. And if I go back into my wallet on Fountain, I've just zoomed in so you can see this a bit more clearly. But at the top, we have 10,000 sats now in our Fountain wallet that I can use to stream to podcasters or send boosts. And down at the bottom, you'll see in the transactions list, I've got a deposit. It was a Lightning transaction, and it was for 10,000 sats. Let me just quickly go back across to the BottlePay wallet to see what it looks like on there. Now, as we saw before, the actual transaction total value was for 10,006 sats. Those 6 sats are the fees to make the transaction. So as we can see in the information button, we've got who the payment was to, how much we paid, and the payment fee, which is 6 sats. Now, just how much is 6 sats? Well, at today's value, 6 sats equals 0.00112 Great British pounds. So it's a tenth of a penny to make the transaction. It's not 1%, 2%, 3%. It's a tenth of a penny, which is so low that people do say Lightning transactions are virtually no cost because the fees are so low. In fact, for some payments, some smaller payments, there are zero fees, which actually enables the ability now to have a true micropayment infrastructure. But that's the BottlePay wallet for now. We will return to it shortly. I want to show you some of the really nice features. Let's go back across to Fountain and let's start streaming sats to some podcasters. So back across on the Fountain app, I've got my 10,000 sats in my wallet. So I'm now good to go to stream sats to this podcasting 2.0 episode. I go to stream, I'll leave it at 50 sats per minute. We've got streaming sats switched on. So all I need to do is start playing and listening to the podcast. Now, as I'm listening, you can see here, we've got the stream of 50 sats per minute. So I'll leave that running for a couple of minutes and we'll go back and look at the transactions and see how that's recorded. I can also boost from this point as well. So let's say I've listened to a particular section that I thought was really valuable and I want to give them a bit extra than just the 50 sats per minute. I can go to boost. It's currently set by default to 500 sats per boost, which is fine. Let's just check on the information. Yeah, so you can send a minimum of 100 and a maximum of 1 million sats for the show. And again, Fountain charges a 4% fee on top of all boosts. That's not a technical issue. That's a commercial decision that they've taken to charge a 4% fee. You can sign up to their premium service if you want to reduce your transaction fees, but I'll leave that for now. So we'll keep it to the default of 500 sats. And let's go ahead and write a message to Adam. So let's go ahead and send 500 sats off. This may take a couple of seconds, but I don't really want to speed the video up. I want to show you this in real time. And there we go. So as I say, I'm going to leave this running for a couple of minutes. If you look up at the top, by the way, I've earned 1 sat. You get a random amount of sats for each minute that you listen to the podcast for the first hour. And that's across podcasts as well. So if you only listen to first 10 minutes of 5 podcasts, you'll still get the same amount of sats. Anyway, I'm going to leave that running and we'll come back after 2 or 3 minutes. We'll take a look at our transactions. Okay, I've switched that off. We're now 7 minutes into the podcast. So let me go ahead and go back to our home screen. So click on here. Actually, this has taken me straight to the wallet page, which is great because this is what we want to take a look at. So you can actually look at today, over the last 7 days, the last 30 days, etc. But obviously, because I've only started sort of using this today, I just have this summary information for today's transactions. And let's take a look. So the top section is our earned section. Now, I've only listened to 1 podcast, so it's shown me 4 sats as a reward for listening to that for about 4 minutes. Then we have a supported section. So I sent 500 sats out as a boost, and I've spent 204 sats as a stream. So yeah, I listened to it for 4 minutes. 4 times 50 is 200. The show I supported, Podcasting 2.0, has had a total of 704 sats. And then below that are all the individual transactions for today, my earning and support transactions. If I were to click on See All, I'd see that boost as well. So a fantastic way to support your favorite podcasts. If they're not included within the value for value mechanism, they can easily claim their rewards. There is some information in the Fountain app about doing that. Now, one thing to point out is that these transactions are person to person and virtually instantaneous. There's no middleman, there's no settlement period. The sats I send from the Fountain app end up in the Lightning wallets of the people in the split, and the second they receive them, they can use them, either to purchase other goods or services, or to transfer back to dollars or pounds, or any other currency. Now, one thing before I finish off this section, the account I set up on the Fountain app was a demo account, and still has 9,235 sats in the wallet, which, to be honest, I will never use because I'm going to close down this demo account. So I can transfer the sats across to an external wallet and then just close down the account. The funds aren't trapped in a proprietary system. I don't need to convert them into anything. I just need to withdraw them from the Fountain wallet. So to do that, All I need to do is go back to these three dots and then say withdraw from wallet, withdraw with Lightning LN URL. So I can either withdraw a partial amount, 5,000 sats, or the bulk of the sats. They're going to keep, 100 sats or something, less than 100 sats as a fee for doing this, but that's fine. We'll just click on that button. So there is my Lightning invoice. Oh, and by the way, if the wallet you want to transfer the sats to is on the same device as this QR code, so you can't really use the camera, you can use this long invoice address down at the bottom. You can just click on the icon on the left-hand side to copy it to your clipboard, and then in your other wallet, you can paste it from the clipboard and transfer the funds that way. But I'm going to use the QR code again, so let me go ahead and get my iPhone. So I'm not going to use the BottlePay wallet this time. The BottlePay wallet is really optimized for purchasing sats from the BottlePay service. So it's not a full-blown Lightning wallet. I'm actually using another one here called Wallet of Satoshi. And this is more of a general purpose type wallet. Now, I will go through some of these differences in the next Primer show, but I'm going to use Wallet of Satoshi. As you can see, I've got 0 sats in my wallet. I'm just going to go ahead and tap on Receive. And then I'm going to tap on the icon in the bottom right corner, which is the camera icon. There we go. Just scan the QR code on my iPad. So it's going to transfer 9,142 sats. We'll say receive. And that has done it. So payment is on the way. Boom. I've got 9,142 sats in my wallet of Satoshi. And again, I can use this now to transfer to other people, pay for goods and services, pretty much everything else I can do with a Lightning wallet. So now that I've safely transferred the funds away from my Fountain wallet, I can go ahead and delete my Fountain demo user account. So that completes part 1 of this 2-part series on the Lightning Network. We'll be back next week with the second part. And there are plenty of exciting developments currently deployed out there in the real world, but also many more in the pipeline to look forward to. But anyway, that's it for this week. We'll be back next week on Tuesday with a tip video, so we'll speak to you then.